subscribe.
The Voices of Victory podcast show.
Voices of Victory.
Vision.
Voices of Victory.
Leadership.
Voices of Victory.
Workplace-related topics.
The Voices of Victory.
Voices of Victory. Voices of Victory. Voices of Victory.
It's time for the show. You are now listening to the Voices of Victory podcast show.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mario Di Leone.
Welcome back. I shouldn't have left you. Shouldn't have left you. Shouldn't have left you without a dope beat to step to. And that was the song from Aaliyah back in 2000, God rest her soul, from the movie Romeo Must Die. Today's topic in the Voices of Victory podcast with Mario Di Leone is all about the framework that people act from. That's a big fact I want to bring to the table today for people, is that people act from their own reality, and that own reality has a framework. So they could act from fear-based responses. They could literally avoid taking risks, withdraw from relationships. They can act from those sort of things because they have painful past experiences. They may have defense mechanisms, denial, projection, all kinds of rationalization. And this trauma, you know what happens? It creates deep emotional wounds. It's just a psychological buffer, and it's there to protect their ego. What about people pleasing? I know quite a bit of these. They overextend themselves at the family party. They want to keep the peace, but they might offer up their own people pleasing in order to make everybody happy, but they rarely think of their own happiness. They suppress their own needs. They've gotten used to prioritize the happiness of others that literally they've just been shutting down their nervous system as a result. Aggression and confrontation, you see these people a lot in the workplace, right? They react to every challenge, every disagreement, every discussion. It's all anger, it's all hostility, it's all confrontation, even in situations that actually don't warrant it. They need to be seen as correct because it's nothing more than a big ego feed. And you know what? It screams of unresolved trauma. Perhaps they were dominated so bad when they were a child and they have some kind of program in them, and they were told that this is how you got to be. The world is a battlefield. Relationships are war, right? Where they have to fight for control. Yeah, lots of luck with that. What about avoidance? The procrastinator, the disengager, escape into binge watching, unhealthy escapism, some substance abuse, overworking. Let me fill my time with work because I don't know what to do when I'm free. Being free and having free time doesn't feel safe. So let me shove myself into my work and get married to my work instead. And then we look around and wonder why relationships have such issues. Good old self-sabotage. Yep, I know quite a few of these. It's one I can think of right now off the top of my head. They undermine their success just by missing opportunities. They break commitments. They purposely derail their commitments. Oh, I can't make it. They create conflict with that other person too. They start a fight. Why? I don't want to go. I don't want to be there. I don't want to meet with them. I don't want to commit to what they're asking me. Let me create a fight. Let me ghost them because it's easier to self-sabotage, right? Past failures, little trauma programs in the head that get them to believe that somehow, some way, they're undeserving of any type of success or happiness. It's really hard to actually be happy when you're operating from a framework of self-sabotage. Really hard to be happy. And if you're one of those self-sabotage people, it's a good time to put yourself under that microscope carefully, with care, with self-care and compassion. Let's talk about hyper-independence, right? People say, oh, I want to be in an independent relationship. And this person says, well, I'm codependent. You know, we got codependent, you got independent, and then you got interdependent, which is the most healthy of them all. And then you got hyper independence. I don't need anyone. Man or woman, doesn't matter. They say the famous line of, I don't need anyone. And they refuse help. They reject intimacy. They don't know how to get close. They over rely on themselves to the point of burnout. Any sign of someone getting close and they throw up an emotional red flag and totally run. They cut and run. Then they wonder. They wonder why other people do it to them in return at some point. The trauma that's been related to betrayal, that people have left them. Little mental programs of neglect in their childhood. They believe that relying on other people was somehow a disappointment. What about excessive control? They micromanage situations. You can pick them out at work. It's the boss that likes to micromanage everything. It's helicopter authority. They helicopter over everybody, trying to micromanage everything. Relationships even. They struggle to let go. And the hard part with that is there may have been some traumatic events that taught them that control was the only way to avoid any chaos or avoid any kind of pain. What about numbing emotions? There's a lot of people who do that. Oh, I just want to numb myself out, eat chips, and binge watch for 10 hours. I want to escape the unhealthy escapism crowd. I want to suppress my emotions. I want to appear stoic and avoid vulnerable conversations because I don't like the fact every time there's something vulnerable that comes up, let me leave the dinner table. Yep, little trauma programs associate those wonderful emotional vulnerabilities with danger or weakness. Oh, can't be vulnerable. Why? Oh, it's weak. Yeah, God forbid, right? Overcompensation. Yeah. They overachieve, seek perfection. I have to be perceived as perfect in front of everybody. That's the good old green flag that they try to throw up, which usually turns out to be a red flag in disguise. How they act. They seek perfect relationships only to be disappointed. They're completely excessive only to be disappointed. Then they feel inadequate. They feel rejected. And they run that little program in their head of inadequacy or rejection. And they believe that they got to prove their worth through some kind of constant success. That, hey, if I'm not doing perfect, I'm not doing amazing, I'm not an overachiever, then I am nobody. So you wind up doing your shit for the rest of the world. You wind up overcompensating for everyone else, not really taking growth into account. Actual legitimate growth, even if it's uncomfortable. Now, why do people even act from their own reality? Why do they act from their own framework, their own programming? Well, for one, survival instincts would be the first one. People have just been accustomed to the way their nervous system has been running that they feel that it's normal. It's like their nervous system's like an old shitty sneaker. It feels great. You put it on, it feels awesome. That's what your nervous system feels is like, this doesn't necessarily look good, but it feels great. I'm used to it. So I'm just going to stick with this sneaker instead of putting on another sneaker that might give me a blister for a week, even though that new sneaker may look a whole lot better. Well, that being said, they don't feel safe. And that old sneaker is safety. And if they have trouble forming habits and behaviors that feel safe, then every time you try to introduce a new habit to these people, their survival instinct kicks off and they get threatened. They feel it's a threat in some way to their identity. Unprocessed trauma. Without resolving any emotional wounds, of course, people subconsciously play out their patterns. They replay their patterns. And you know what? Those patterns, it just mirrors their past pain. And we look at their belief systems, their early experiences, their childhood. It shaped all of their core beliefs about self-worth, about relationships, about the world. You got to remember the framework in the way they perceive the world is also important because they were maybe told that the world is a terrible place. Other people might have been told that the world is a fair place, or an objective place, or a place of good and bad, and there's neutral in the middle. There's all kinds of different ways, and this emotional conditioning comes up. They associate maybe particular behaviors with reward and punishment. This is a reward. God forbid you say the word discipline. Oh, that's punishment. Can't do a push-up. Sorry. Can't try that diet. Sorry, I won't try a diet either. Why? It's pain. Why? The word discipline means pain to them. It's quite simple. So they operate off of those reward and punishment, and they look at the word discipline. They make the connotation of the word discipline as being painful. And it could have easily come from an authority figure when they were a child that literally used the word, I'm going to discipline you. And then as a result of that, they've associated that. Because there are other people that hear the word discipline and it doesn't have the same connotation, doesn't have the same meaning to them. What about lack of awareness? These people, we see them, they're accident prone. They usually joke about it too. They're like, oh, I'm accident prone, right? That's when you know for an absolute fact that there is no self-awareness because they're self-deprecating about their awareness, their own awareness. They're completely unaware that they're not paying attention to where they're walking, what they're doing, how they're going up and down the stairs, none of that. They're not mindful. They've operated off a mindless principle. They walk down the street, completely unaware, staring at their phone, and then they wonder kind of why they fall into a manhole or something like that, right? I don't know how that happened. Yeah, okay. Then we have avoidance of pain. That's pretty typical. I mean, we do things to go towards pleasure and then avoid pain. And People act from that programming where it feels easier to avoid the pain rather than to address the root cause of the pain. And you know what? It just leads to discomfort and the fear of change, right? The fear of change is probably by far the biggest one. Literally, the biggest one is fear of change. Fear of change, it really makes their emotional resistance hit to the surface. Like it screams, like it's almost like a Tyrannosaurus Rex in the amygdala of the brain that's just screeching absolute fear. Because any type of change will connect to a survival instinct. The change triggers the brain's amygdala, basically, is what I'm trying to say, the fear center. They have comfort in the known, anything that's known. It's like the Linus blanket, you know? I'm going to carry this blanket. Why? Because it's comfortable. So it's comfort in the known. It feels safe. They're attached to their identity. They feel like if they change, they're going to lose who they are. They fear failure because maybe failure is I'll feel like a failure or I'll perceive being perceived as a failure. And of course, finally, we have good old-fashioned social conditioning like betrayal or rebellion in childhood, you know, maybe family expectations even. So there you have it. That's pretty much all there is for today. Just remember, the next time you go into a supermarket and you got somebody in front of me and, you know, they got someone in front of you, excuse me, and they're operating, having a bad day. Maybe they're sad. Maybe they're depressed. Maybe they're frustrated. People act from their framework. They act from their own reality. And it doesn't admonish bad behavior. It doesn't mean we shouldn't have justice. But if we start to look at it in this way, we can have more compassion for other people. And you know what? Compassion is the opposite of judgment. It takes 5 seconds to actually judge somebody. It takes 3 minutes to actually have self-compassion or compassion. That's why compassion is so hard. Have a great day. See you on the next episode.